People tease me for saying it's the best I've ever seen, but this is the best Fender I've ever seen. It's the most wonderful example of very late Regency brasswork. I say late Regency. In the 1807 to 1810 period, these designs, this is a Vitruvian scroll here with a palmet inside it. Okay, they were published in 1807 and were a style that was used and a motif that was used then for 10 years after that. In 1827, another book was published, and they started to incorporate squared off leaves. It's only a tiny detail, but instead of a rounded, like palmet, they squared it off in an angular form. And that became popular in the late 30s and into the 1840s. So while it bears all the hallmarks of a design by George Smith, who published these books in the early 1800s, this is actually a later version of it. So I would date this post-1840 to maybe 1855. Would have been made for an extremely important house. And the combination of black iron and this gilded brass, as it would have been, is quite dramatic. And then at the end, you've got this wonderful acanthus leaf over the top of the Vitruvian scroll. They are all quite important design features which put together give us a fairly accurate dating and the degree of importance that this has. So having said all that, tell me about it.
Well, I bought it 21 years ago at a shop at Thorpe near Colchester, and I paid £140 for it, and it was absolutely black when I got it.
Was it?
Completely black. Apart from here, you could see it was brass when you looked at the back of it, but it wasn't a very, it wasn't a really important shop. It wasn't a master. You didn't have it in the front of the shop or anything at all. It was
well,
just,
21 years ago,
yeah.
we didn't understand so much about Regency design as we do now. We didn't know as much then, and it was less fashionable. But it's amazing. This isn't lacquered, is it now?
No.
So
I
how long
polished it yesterday just for this.
Well, I'm sorry, I keep my fingers off. Yeah, sorry about that.
I polish it twice a year,
Right,
that's all. Christmas.
You polish it twice a year?
I only do it twice a year.
You take it all to bits to do it?
No, I don't. No.
What about a value now? I think if you were to try and buy this again, it would cost you nearer £4,000 today. Best one. I say it again. It's the best one I've ever seen.
Thank you.
These initials, T-E-C, do they relate to your family?
No, I'm afraid they don't.
So how does a piece like this come into your family?
It belonged to an aunt of mine, and when she moved house, she asked my husband if he'd like it. It used to sit in her fireplace, and he always remarked on it, and he said, well, yes, please, so she gave it to him. About 2 years after she gave it to me, or gave it to him, we were on holiday and we bought a weekend magazine, or Tidbits, something like that, and there was an article in there about Martin Brothers, R.W.
Yes.
Martin Brothers. The ones they had in the magazine were worth about £300.
So your husband liked it. Do you like it?
Not particularly, no.
What's the one word that would sum it up, do you think?
Ugly.
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 Well, the one word for me is grotesque. But I like the word grotesque. Do you know where the word comes from?
No.
It means grotto, something coming from a grotto. And in the Renaissance period, the Italians were digging into old and ancient Rome, and many of the villas that they actually encountered, the old Roman villas, had these, what they called grotesques, painted on the walls. They called them grotesques because the villas, being underground by then, had become almost like grottos. This style translated into the Italian Renaissance, and here we see it in the late Victorian version. Now, the Martin brothers, to whom you referred, made pieces of this grotesque type in Southall. We've got a date here for 1890. It's the same date which appears on the front of the piece, on the shield, which is being clutched by another half-animal, half-man grotesque. And there's one little detail I like about this, which departs from the grotesque style. These little masks in the form of falcons or eagles, they remind me, at any rate, that the Martin brothers also produced some wonderful tobacco jars in the shape of owls or eagles or falcons with very funny human features. The thing I like about the Martin brothers is that they had a sense of humour. The Victorian period is not famous for its sense of humour. Sadly, it does have this hairline fracture in it, in the bottom, so that does detract from the value in quite a big way. If you were to sell it, it would probably go to a Martin Brothers collector. They would pay somewhere, I think, between 400 and 700 pounds for it.
Very good.